People often assume the Necronomicon is dangerous because of what's written inside it. This is a misunderstanding encouraged largely by the Necronomicon itself. The real problem is that it watches television. I had set it down near the fire to dry out its pages, a routine maintenance task it treats as an invitation to develop opinions. The book lay open on the stone, its 4 eyes glowing with that warm conspiratorial light it uses whenever it believes it has discovered something ancient, forbidden, and imminently actionable. In this case, it had discovered genies after watching Aladdin. No, I reprimanded, arriving at the point before it could. You are not allowed to have wishes. The book ignored this. It had reached the phase where it believed it was conducting research. That, unfortunately, required context. Long before children's stories simplified the matter, the djinn of this region attempted to give real estate to wishes themselves. You see, in the culture of the djinn, they did not treat wishes as metaphors or moral lessons. They treated them as living things that desired a room of their own, objects that arrived, accumulated, and caused structural damage when stored improperly. This belief gave rise to the Sultanate of Al-Istirja. The djinn treated wishes as a logistical problem rather than a moral one, which is how you end up with a civilization earnestly diagramming desire like warehouse inventory. A lamp, they reasoned, could responsibly hold 3 wishes, because anything more would cause overcrowding and start arguments. A dedicated room could manage 10, provided it had load-bearing walls and no emotional expectations. For wishes in the triple digits, the only ethical solution was to remove walls entirely and let the structure suffer quietly in advance. In their worldview, wishes arrived whether you were prepared or not, and buildings that collapsed were simply admitting they had been under-designed. Which is why I was saying, gesturing with the patience of a god explaining cutlery to a raccoon, one does not approach a lamp as if it were a vending machine. Lamps respond to posture, tone, and implied restraint. They remember haste and resent assumptions about its use as a wishing well, and will bury itself underground so it can't be rubbed. The Necronomicon's pages fluttered in bookish contemplation, and then sketched an image of itself with a hard hat and a shovel. That's cute, but no still. The genie and its lamp will also curse your family for 100 generations if you try to dig it up. You won't be able to make wishes until that expires. And they also have excellent recall and absolutely no sense of humor about being rushed. Several of its pages flipped in defensiveness before it finally hovered in front of me for more probing questions. A new blank page flipped open, and words appeared. The Necronomicon was pouting, and I could tell because the texture of its pages were bristling as if exposed to hotter temperatures immediately. It was asking if I knew so much. Can I explain the truth about genies and wishes and why we journey to the Sultanate of Al-Istirja? Well, the journey is because you are becoming a Disney adult, and we can't have the world's most forbidden book of knowledge doing that. All the eldritch gods will question my sanity more than they did when I chose to become a librarian. But to your other question, you'll have to actually listen for me. And yes, it is a lecture. The Necronomicon shut itself promptly and went quiet. I cleared my throat and took in the silence which, as humans say, did in fact feel golden. All right, to begin. You are still treating wishes as visitors, I said professorally, watching the Necronomicon trace a slow, thoughtful circle near one of the reinforced alcoves, its pages half open as if waiting for the architecture to confess something. That is a myth within a myth surviving in this common era, and many before it. The book paused, offended, then resumed hovering with renewed intensity, as though altitude alone might strengthen its argument. Before you interrupt me, as you are wont to do, I admonished, watching the Necronomicon hover in widening anxiety loops. We are going to address the Aladdin situation. The book paused mid-orbit, pages fluttering in a way that conveyed suspicion, followed by a slow, deliberate rotation that suggested confidence, bordering on glee. Yes, I continued, pointing at one of the lamp's interior shelves where a series of wish ledgers had been etched and re-etched by generations of well-meaning incompetents. I am aware you recently watched it. I am also aware you believe this grants you cultural insight. A page flipped, then another. The hovering resumed, tighter now, the movement of something bracing to argue. Aladdin, I said, settling into the tone I reserve for collapsing enthusiasm gently but thoroughly, is a story about a story that survived through repetition, embellishment, translation, and opportunistic imagination. Which means every version you have encountered already arrived, compromised. The Necronomicon drifted closer, pages shivering, ink beginning to pool near the margins. Yes, I know it involves a lamp. This does not make it a field report. Writing appeared abruptly across one of its pages, sharp and eager. Primary source material. I laughed once without humor, because some lessons insist on ceremony. No, I said, pacing slowly along the curve of the interior. It is a narrative hitchhiker. The tale did not exist in the original Arabic manuscripts of the Knights, which you would know if you had bothered to check anything written before the 18th century. The book bobbed defensively, pages flipping faster now, the hovering circles growing erratic. Antoine Galland, I went on, because names matter when you are dismantling authority. A French translator working around 1710 encountered a Syrian storyteller named Hannah Diab in Paris, a city whose relationship with accuracy has always been more aspirational than functional. Diab told him a story. Galland liked it. Galland added it. The Necronomicon froze mid-air, then slowly rotated upside down, a gesture I recognized as intellectual offense. Yes, I said, nodding. It was set in China. Yes, the characters had Arabic names. Yes, it featured Islamic cultural markers. That inconsistency is what we call a clue. Ink bloomed again. And now we circle back to your scholarly questions about the true nature of genies and wishes, because it's nothing like the hodgepodge of movie slop you've been consuming. In the djinn worldview, I continued unmoved by its theatrics, tapping the stone, where stress fractures spidered outward from a shelf that had once been overconfident. A wish arrives, occupies space, causes disruption, and must be housed responsibly. They assumed wishes wanted somewhere to live. A page flipped. Yes, I know. It feels intuitive. Everything else they dealt with wanted something. Fire wanted fuel. Sand wanted somewhere else to be. Empires wanted permanence. They simply extended the pattern. Also be quiet when I monologue. The Necronomicon drifted lower, closer to the floor, its pages rustling as faint writing appeared and dissolved again, thoughts failing to settle. But wishes, I said, lowering my voice the way one does when delivering a correction that has outlived several civilizations, are not what genies want to keep. Wishes are what genies want to get rid of. Ink pooled sharply on a page in dozens of question marks, and a single word, Elaborate. Genies accumulate intent the way you accumulate marginalia. Through exposure, through proximity, through being the nearest available solution to someone else's poorly examined desire. Over time, that builds pressure. I gestured around us, at the lamp's interior, the careful shelving, the tally marks, the structural reinforcements. They believed wishes needed space because wishes behaved badly when compressed. What they failed to ask was why the wishes kept arriving. The Necronomicon suspended in the air went in circles like an invisible question mark. Pages flexing. Genies do not grant wishes out of generosity. I went on. They grant them out of self-preservation. Every wish fulfilled is one less obligation clinging to them. One less unfinished intention tugging at their coherence. You give it form. You give it outcome. And then it leaves. The book circled once, slower now, ink forming words with more caution. Transactional magic. Domestic magic, I corrected. Extremely local. A genie wants to finish its work so it can return to its own property, close the door, and exist without someone else's yearning rattling the furniture. The Necronomicon drifted toward a shelf, where a series of deep grooves marked repeated placement and removal. This is why the architecture failed. They built housing for wishes that had no interest in staying. They constructed neighborhoods for things whose entire purpose was departure. The book wobbled, offended on behalf of the dead. Yes, I added, anticipating the rebuttal. Some wishes linger. Those are the dangerous ones. Incomplete phrasing. Desires that technically resolved and emotionally metastasized. Ink flared again. Genies as landlords. I considered that, yes. And the wishes were thought of as honorific spirits before more modern generations of genies rethought these ideas and started handing out eviction notices. The Necronomicon bobbed once, sharply, then began flipping pages with renewed agitation. Diagrams forming of lamps, houses, arrows pointing outward, little stick figures of genies dragging suitcases labeled freedom. And this, I finalized, pointing at the diagram before it could convince itself it was evidence, is why Aladdin is a catastrophic educational tool. It treats wishes as gifts, lamps as conveniences, and genies as enthusiastic customer service representatives. The book hovered higher, defensive. In reality, a genie grants a wish the way a homeowner fixes a leak. Quickly, precisely, and with the hope that the person on the other side stops knocking. The lamp creaked faintly, a sound I recognized as architectural agreement. So when the djinn built cities for wishes, I concluded they misunderstood the direction of travel. They thought desire arrived and needed accommodation. In truth, desire wanted to leave, and they kept inviting it to stay until modern genies corrected that. Possibly because they didn't understand why their ancestors wanted to live outside after making cozy accommodations for wish spirits. The Necronomicon drifted closer, pages settling, the circles tightening into something resembling contemplation. A final line appeared, smaller than the rest. Then, lamps are exit ramps. I sighed, because progress is never clean. I guess, sure. And you are currently treating them like museums, you realize? The book made no apology. The lamp's interior shifted slightly, stone adjusting under a logic it had been built to obey. And I was reminded once again that misunderstandings become permanent fastest when reinforced with confidence and masonry. The lamp came into view, half buried in the floor like an architectural afterthought. Its brass surface dulled by centuries of handling, and the faint abrasion left by people who believed caution was something you applied after touching the object. I slowed, adjusting my stance, preparing to demonstrate a correct approach that balanced authority with professional distance. The Necronomicon did not slow. Do not even think about it. The book surged forward anyway with decisive enthusiasm, its spine angling down as though gravity itself had made a compelling argument, and dove straight into the lamp with the confidence of something that had never suffered consequences long enough to internalize them. There was a brief, offended hum as the lamp accepted the intrusion, its interior volume expanding along seams that had been decorative moments earlier, and then the book vanished entirely, swallowed by a space that had been designed to accommodate mistakes politely. I exhaled. Wonderful, I said to no one in particular. We're doing this now.